Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Lotzar, happy to be your host today. Hoping we'll be joined by Alki and Vern. So we shall see, but happy to be here with you in the meantime. So as per usual, this is an open Q&A. So feel free to share whatever job search questions are on your heart and mind, and I'll do my best to address them. So I'd like to kick us off. Anybody got a question? Here's Alki. Maria.
Good morning, Sharon. Good
Morning.
morning, everyone. I do have a question. I am wanting to I'm planning to, as I reach out to my network on LinkedIn, I just want to send a notice, an announcement, about the fact that I'm looking for work.
Mhm.
And I'm also sort of, because of the things I want to do, going back to school and actually not wanting to work totally full time, maybe 30 hours a week or whatever. But I'm trying to do a lot of different things. And so um, I want to let folks know that I'm available, and I'm going to list maybe 4 or 5 or 6 different things I want to do, like the
Mhm.
administrative work.
Mhm.
I can do some editing, proofreading, those types of things. So I
Mhm.
want to just sort of have just a short list to let them know these are things I'm able to do. If you know anyone
Mhm.
that has service needs of these services, let me
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I know that not everybody checks the LinkedIn
Right.
regularly.
Correct.
So I'm wondering if it's okay to send an email to
Yes.
let people, to ask them to
Yeah,
check their
absolutely.
LinkedIn.
Well, you don't even have to send an email to check the LinkedIn. You can send an email with the same message. Does that make
Well, yeah,
sense?
that's true.
Yeah, that's all
Yeah.
you have to do is just put the message on LinkedIn and then send a mass email with the exact same message so that people can see it both ways.
And so then for the folks that I don't have emails for, though, they're on LinkedIn only,
Well,
then I guess I just,
actually, I don't know if everybody knows this, but if you are first level connected with someone, 98% of the time you can get their email address. Do you know that,
oh,
Maria? Yeah.
okay,
So let me share with everybody what I'm talking about in case you don't
okay.
hold on. I'm gonna share my screen.
There's a screw, right? Like,
Okay. So if you are connected with someone, let me just share here. So I'll put an Alki because I know we are connected.
Okay.
All right. So you open up the profile. By the way, this works best on a PC. Okay. And then you go to the contact info button right here.
Okay.
And 98% of the time, oh, interestingly, Mr. Alki, your email is not there. That's a very
No, it's
interesting,
not.
it's a very interesting 2% of the time it didn't work. Alki, I'm not sure if that was intentional. If it wasn't, then you may want to go back and change, but it's normally supposed to show up here. Okay.
Okay.
Most of the time, most people have their email there. So let me just pull up, actually, I'll pull up Vern. See if Vern's is here. So you go here, contact info,
Okay.
and his is here. Okay. Most people
Okay.
have it there. Occasionally people will, will remove it for whatever confidentiality reason, but most of the
Hmm.
time you're going to find it there.
So
And
it's
then
just a
this, and then
second and third level. I'm sorry, go ahead.
second and third level, you
It
cannot,
won't be there.
you
Okay.
absolutely will not be there. That's the whole advantage of having a first level is that generally you can. Now, people add different information, like Vern actually added his phone number as well. People at some, but that's
Hmm.
unusual. Most people just have the email address.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so we've got Lydia and then Tammy.
Yes, please. Good morning again, everyone. I spoke to a recruiter a couple of weeks ago, and she suggested that I change my resume from the formal kind of resume to like a storytelling resume.
A
And
storytelling resume? I'm confused.
I have been trying to find the stories, but
What?
it's
I'm
it's
so sorry,
almost
lady. When you say a storytelling resume, what is she referring to?
instead of every job that I've done,
Yeah,
instead of writing what I did, the role, and then
right.
about 2 or 3 bullets of what I did
Yeah,
on the job,
yeah.
she told me to do it in a way of an accomplishment,
Absolutely. Oh, yes.
or
Yes, yes, yes,
quantify
yes,
what
yes,
I did.
yes.
Okay.
That's right.
I wanted to check in
Absolutely.
with you first.
Oh, 100. Thank you for clarifying that. 100%. And I want to encourage everybody to do this. That's Lydia, you just hit on an incredibly important point for everybody on this call. So let me say this. Most job seekers, when they write resumes, are not aware actually of what you're talking about. Most people do job duties. Okay. If I were to see majority of resumes, what I see is company title, dates, duty, 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 duty. That's how most people write their resumes. Please let me encourage you here officially from the recruiter career coach in the room. Okay. You must use accomplishment stories. People don't want to know what you did, they want to know what you accomplished. Now, you can have underneath your title a little job description, like a 2 or 3 lines overarchingly what your responsibilities were. That's actually very helpful. But the actual bullets should be accomplishment stories. Now, some of you might know I am a resume writer, so I'm coming to you with a particular perspective here, right? But what I recommend is that you come up with stories. The way you would write the story first before you wordsmith it, the actual story. Some people use the SAR or STAR or CAB. So situation, action, result, situation, task, action, result, challenge, action, benefit. It's all the same thing. It's a story. Okay. So first write that down in long form, and then you'd want to condense it. And you could actually start with the result. So, save, maybe you talked about that you saved the organization X dollars, or you increased, engagement by whatever percent. If you don't have a percentage, if you don't have a metric, right, a percentage or a dollar amount, that's okay. That's fine. Actually, a lot of people don't, but at least you want to talk about some sort of results of what the work is that you did, right? Or don't have, and you don't even have to start with the result. You could start with the activity. So let me give you an example that a sample resume that I do for folks, and that hopefully will help you out. So give me 1 second. Sorry, I've got to pull up my document here. Let me go find it. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is a sample. And you'll notice here my stories are a little bit on the longer side because they're kind of substantive. You don't have to make them this long. They could just be a couple of lines. But I wanted you to see what I'm talking about, Lydia. Okay, now they could be half this length, that's fine. But if you notice, right, it actually talks through what the person did. They bolstered their online university. They, expanded the certificate program. They influenced the blah, 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 right? They improved the something, something. They created something, something, right? And so now I've realized that everybody's different. Like all of your roles are different, but there are some things that you did in your previous jobs that were actually notable, right? Where you accomplished something. Now, in administrative work, it's a little bit trickier because there are frankly a lot of tasks that you're doing. But even so, you want to think about the more dramatic moments in your work experience where you helped your executive, for example, get out of a sticky situation, or maybe you streamlined a process, or you planned a successful meeting, or that kind of thing. So definitely go through your accomplishments. But the other thing about accomplishments is that they need to be keyword focused, right? So this is the way that I do resumes is I label them with keywords, okay? You can start with a generic version of keywords, but you absolutely need to customize the keywords for the specific job. You will hear me and Alki and everybody else tell you that. It is very, very critical because when an employer is looking at your resume, they're not just looking at a generic resume. You're not a generic person. They need to know that your competencies directly align with that specific job. So in that job posting, you want to be looking at the summary. You want to be looking at the first few bullets of the responsibilities, the first few bullets of the qualifications. Look for the specific keywords that the employer is listing, and then you take these labels and you tweak them, right? You customize them for the competencies that they're looking for in the job posting. And I want to also clarify what I mean by a competency. I'm not talking about your behavioral skills. I'm not talking about being organized or strategic or analytical, those kinds of things. Those soft skill competencies are what an employer is going to be looking for in the interview to see who you are and if you're going to be a good culture fit. When I'm talking about competencies in a resume, I'm talking about hard skills, functional skills, meeting planning, research, writing, customer service, board relations, financial analysis, project management, that kind of stuff, that kind of thing. And so the job posting is going to have those keywords in the sections that I just mentioned. Your accomplishment stories should be labeled accordingly so that the employer knows that you are qualified for that particular role. So start out with a generic resume that you can send to your colleagues, but specifically for a job posting, make sure that everything aligns. Make sense? Before we go to Tammy, Andrew, and Srini, Alki, do you want to share anything else around that?
Yes, good morning and apologies. I don't want to risk video right now with the tech issues that I'm dealing with. I didn't catch the beginning of that, but I assume it has something to do with customizing and keywording.
Yeah, actually, Lydia's original question was that, or she was mentioning that a recruiter told her that she should shift from writing just job duties on her resume to stories. And so then I was talking about stories, and then I was talking about, the importance of keywords.
Okay. Yeah. Oh man, stories. Yeah, your format that you use, keyword focused, regardless of the story or details or stats or whatever, keywords draw our eyes first. We're going to hone in on those first, and then we'll read whatever you have underneath. But yeah, I'll just come in and just second, focusing on the keywords that match the specific ones requested in the job description and highlighting those. Stories, I sometimes weave accomplishment, bits and pieces into some summary sometimes, but it's best done underneath the section, that the header that you just showed, and then underneath each experience, a short snippet version of your accomplishments and stories.
Well, and the labels are important. They really are, because that helps the employer just scan down the page very quickly.
Yep.
Remember, recruiters don't read.
No.
Scan. Let me say that again. Recruiters don't read, they scan. As well as ATSs and all the other digital tools, right? There's a keyword scanning that everybody's doing these days. Very different than it was 30 years ago, right? No, people had a hard document. Right now, it's all about scanning. All right, Tammy, and then Andrew, and then Srini.
Good morning. I just recently started a LinkedIn premium trial, and I've been playing around with it. And for searches and reverse engineering stuff, whatever, what I realized is I don't know a lot about best practices as they relate to LinkedIn analytics. I'm hoping maybe you can share some best practices.
Share with me what you're referring to when you talk about the analytics.
Well, it's funny because if you've been a LinkedIn user for a while, it's actually a restoration of stuff you used to have. So they would tell you like how many profile views you got and who was looking at you.
Okay, so that's what I thought. That's what I thought you meant.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Let me just share with you. That's what I call LinkedIn's version of itch scratching. What is an itch scratch? An itch scratch is like, this is just LinkedIn being very social media, right, sensitive. And they're like, oh, guess what? Who winked at you? Who looked at you? Honestly, Tammy, from practical purposes, it doesn't even matter. It matters zero. Okay. Because here's the thing, when recruiters are doing searches, we go to the search bar, we put in a keyword, what have you. We're going to get lots and lots and lots of people who come up in a search that have absolutely nothing to do with who we're looking for. They just happen to come up in search. You might happen to come up in search, but it's not, you're just coming up in a search. So the fact that LinkedIn said to you, guess what? You've had these many profile views or this many people, you know, you came up in these searches, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is who reached out to you, right? And so that's a relationship thing. That's where if you have the right, again, keywords in your profile, if you're being found, look, if somebody's looked at your profile and they didn't reach out, they didn't reach out, right? Just because you came up in a profile search doesn't necessarily mean that your profile is more impactful. It just means that somebody happened to be looking for you and happened to find you. But in the reality is, if you're looking for a job, right? The only thing that matters is the relationship. The only thing that matters is who actually connected with you, not how algorithmically how many times you happen to show up or who happened to look at your profile. Does that make sense?
It does, and I mean, it's a little misleading, the information they do send up.
Right.
And, you know, you could show up in a search result, but you could be
Right.
on page 100
I
versus
know.
page 1.
Tammy, that's what I'm saying. LinkedIn's just being itch scratchy. They're like, they know in social media, the social media is all about likes and follows and looks and this and that. It doesn't actually matter. Practically speaking, you're absolutely right. It's misleading. And you know, they're doing their social media thing, but from a practical perspective, it don't even bother with it. It really doesn't matter. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question, that you don't have to worry about it, you know?
I got it. I mean, the big use, the utility for me right now is I have access to more filters. So I can reverse engineer a lot of stuff. And, you know, some companies that were on my target list, we start looking at, well, gee, who are they hiring? You know, some companies are more disposed to certain universities or titles or whatever. And that, you know,
Yeah, I wouldn't overthink too much of that. I would say what you're more interested in is, and I'll say this more broadly, it's about being proactive on LinkedIn, right? It's not about necessarily who's finding you and all of those things. It's more what's your brand? Who are you targeting? What sectors? What specific kinds of companies? What people should you be networking with? You want to leverage that search bar in the upper left-hand corner to go be your own recruiter, right? To go find people with whom you can connect. So whether those are individuals who are in your lane, right, who do what you do, who are going to hear about opportunities that are not right for them but could be right for you, whether it is employers who need to need to know about you, where you're going to go into that company, right, and do a search and find out the employees and then go proactively network. All of those things are what's going to actually boost your search very specifically. So in branding language, what I call it the difference between your lane and your community. So your lane is your profession, your community is the sector that you serve. So if you're really clear about which is which, then you can go do searches for people in your lane, do searches for people in your community, build those relationships, and those are the people who can keep you in mind for opportunities. So I know this is like, I'm just getting in a call like this, right? I can only go very, very high level. So I would just encourage you not to necessarily think about the analytics and the schools that different people look at and all that, but more like put all that aside. You be proactive. You treat this as like a business development kind of activity. Proactively go into companies, proactively meet with people who do what you do, and hopefully that'll boost things. Alki, you've been nodding your head. Anything you want to say about that?
Yep. The short thing that I'll concur is, and you said it, recruiting yourself. It's funny, maybe a few years ago, most job seekers, regular professionals were like, I don't need premium. That's just for recruiters and salespeople. Well, now premium, you don't have to have it, but if you do have it, you have you have more in messages you can send and things of that nature, because it's required. You can't now just, apply and expect to hear back. Somebody just got a job yesterday that I've been talking to, and they said, yep, 336 applications later, somebody finally gave me an offer. So premium right now, again, you don't have to purchase it, but if you do, or if you have it or have access to it, it gives you an extra leg up on being able to contact people. Instead of just applying, you can reach out to people directly or get their attention, which was part of the initial part of this question, of getting noticed. Like Shira said, it's good to get noticed. You can't have the conversation if you're not noticed or strike up something in the beginning, but it's really for the purposes of you being able to be proactive. And a little side note, one of the other things I was thinking with this conversation to reverse engineer this comment back to what we were just talking about before, FYI, a lot of people don't know that recruiters actually see your resume. You're getting seen. Like if you only knew, like when you don't hear anything back from some of those applications, a lot of times you're getting seen. You're just not getting interaction and engagement because they screened it, they went on to somebody else or whatever reason. So that takes what I was thinking back to what Shira said, the importance of your resume being focused, targeted, having all those keywords so that you can be noticed and engaged. But a lot of people think, nobody's looking, I'm not getting any feedback. A lot of times they see your resume. They're just not responding, which again drives back to making sure that it stands out and matches the job description. So I just wanted to tie those two
One
together.
other quick thing, Alki, you just mentioned something that crossed my mind. So this past week, somebody reached out to me and was asking about the easy apply button on LinkedIn. Does anybody use that? Easy apply on, okay. So I was digging into it a little bit more. And the thing with easy apply is that on the one hand, it makes it easy to apply, right? So like you just hit this button and it pulls up your profile. The problem with it is that you can't customize your application for that job because LinkedIn's made it easy for you to just hit a button. The problem with that is that on the back end, on the recruiter side of things, because I've used LinkedIn, I'm sure you have too, to post a job. What we see is just we see your picture, we see your name, and this is all quick, right? Your name, and then just literally the headline of the job title, the company and the job titles that you've had in a quick little section. We actually have to be proactive to click on a different button to open up your resume. And even then the resume is going to be generic because it's the easy apply button. The point is that it makes it very easy for us to screen you out because we get very little information when you use the easy apply button. Now, I realize the implications of what I'm saying. If you don't use the easy apply button, you've got to customize every single time. I get it. And that's challenging. What I would recommend is that you consider doing a LinkedIn customization, a customized application for the jobs that you were really, really spot on for. When I say spot on, I mean really, really qualified, not just interested. Let me say that again, that you're really, really qualified for, not just interested. A lot of people apply for jobs they are interested in, but aren't really qualified for. And guess what? The competition is so stiff these days with online applications, you're easily going to get overlooked. Employers are typically getting 1 to 200 resumes in the first 24 to 48 hours on a LinkedIn job posting. 1 to 200 resumes in the first 24 to 48 hours. Huge competition. So if you're going to apply to a job that you're really, really qualified for, I'd recommend taking that extra minute, doing the regular apply, do a customization, and make sure that you get standout. But which leads to the other topic, which is you really shouldn't be spending your time on the job boards because of all the competition, right? No more than 10% of your job search should be on the job boards. 90% of your search should be through networking, using LinkedIn search feature, reaching out to people, doing all the networking that you can. And I know we sound like a broken record every time we say that, but it's just, I can't be emphasized enough because very, very, very few people end up getting a job through LinkedIn's job board, right? Because of the competition. So I know we're bouncing all over the place here, but I just want to emphasize it's networking, 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 networking. And then when you do apply, customize, customize, customize. And one last thing, Alki alluded to the premium and why these days it is important. One of the main things that's changed that he alluded to is the fact that it used to be prior to like 6 months ago, whenever LinkedIn made this big change, it used to be you could just make a connection, you could connect with anybody, whoever you wanted, and you could send in personal invitation, and that was it. Now they changed their business model. So now for you to make a connection request with somebody and send a personal invitation, you can only do, what is it, 10 of those or 5? Like, I think it's like 10 a month. Maybe it's 5 now. Okay. Like I thought they had dropped it. Yes, 5 a month of personalized invitations. After that, you have to be a premium user. So now they're basically making everybody do it. If you're a job seeker, you have no choice really to go ahead and do that. So now I'm recommending that people actually use that feature. So okay. So thank you, Tammy, for launching us into all these other directions because now we've been able to cover more topics. All right, Andrew, and then Serini.
All right, thank you for letting me ask my question. I do good on informational interview, the first interview. Then second interview, things never work out. Usually I get some guy that's been in the company for 25 years, doesn't understand me being laid off 6 months, and then working again for 8 months, 9 months, again getting laid off. Nothing was my fault. Everything was either money ran out or FDA didn't allow us to continue servicing that medical equipment. And I just have no consistency in my second interviews. Like the first one, I do great. I just don't know what to do.
Yeah, I wish I could give you specific advice, Andrew, right? Because of course, every situation is a little bit unique. What I will suggest is, look, you never know, right? People have different lenses around employment situations and employment history. You know, you can only share what you can share, like you said, the budget ran out, those kinds of things. I think what's just as important in a second level interview, when the second level interview is with the hiring manager.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's usually with the hiring manager. Yeah.
Right. So when it's with the hiring manager, beyond explaining your reasons for leaving, which that they are what they are, what's more important than that, Andrew, is making sure that you have the employer's lens on what they're looking for from you. That employer has certain business needs that need to be fulfilled. You have certain career needs, which are very important. They have business needs, which are very important. To the extent that you can learn about their business needs, not only from the job description, but from the first level interview, understand, what does success look like in that job? What are they expecting from you in the first year? What does success look like? What are the outcomes that they're looking for? What kind of business challenges are they facing right now? Why is this job even open? People don't just hire people for their health, right? They hire people because they're trying to advance a business goal. What are the goals they're trying to achieve? If you can come prepared in that interview to address those specific needs, show them how you can make an impact, be able to very specifically bring the accomplishment stories from your background to say, hey, in the past, I've done this. It sounds like you need me to do X for these results. That's going to help really smooth out your interview process, Andrew, because that's going to make you stand out. That's going to make the employer say, oh, this guy can actually help us achieve our goals. He's done it before. He can do it again. That's the first thing. And number two, a culture fit, right? So who do they need you to be? Again, you can try to find this out in the first interview. What are the soft skills? What are the behavioral skills? What kind of skills are they looking for? Are they looking for your organization and project management skills? Are they looking for your strategic thinking skills? Are they looking for your ability to engage with customers? I'm not sure what your background is, but whatever the soft skills are that need to be highlighted, you want to be able to be in a position to showcase that effectively, right? So they need to know your business goals that you can solve, and they need to know that you're going to be a good culture fit. Oh, and by the way, hopefully you can showcase that you're actually interested in this particular role and why this role fits your career path. I think being more intentional about all those other areas may help to overcome whatever misperceptions they might have about your background. Alki, anything you want to share?
All that was good. My initial question, Shira just hit on it too. Not sure of the background. I think my first thought is too, like, I wonder what the feedback has been, or has there been any feedback? Whenever somebody tells me like, oh yeah, I keep going on interviews, but I can never get past the second round, third round, first round, whatever it is. I'm always interested in, when the results are the same, I'm always interested in, okay, what's that one thing that it could be? So I'd be curious to know, have you gotten any feedback from them at all?
I tried calling them and they don't call back.
Have you had the opportunity well, let me back up. At this point, without knowing more, I think, as Shira said, on the front end, you can go in as prepared as possible, and all those things she mentioned, everybody needs to do on every interview, because it's about qualifications first and your ability to do the job, and then secondly, most of the rest of it she mentioned is fit and culture. If they're qualified, are they the best qualified? Where they fall in the qualifications range? And then after that, it's all about, okay, can they work with our team? Can I work with this person? will it be good if they report to me? How's the personality? What type of vibes am I getting? Most of that is happening in the interview for a really prepared employer. So without feedback, it's tough when they don't give feedback. And I know everybody on this call probably can vibe with that, but it hurts to not have feedback because you don't know. Like if you keep getting the same results, unless you know yourself, it's hard to really know like why did they say no? Why did they not call me back? So that's tough. And it's good that you've made attempts to ask. I can't do it on this call without taking up a lot of time, but I would say, there could be an approach that you do where going into the interview or even before the interview to Shira's point, you can even ask, maybe the interview's in 2 days. You can ask, hey, looking forward to our interview, on Thursday. I just wanted to know, if you had to say, what are the top 2 or 3 things you guys are looking to focus on in this position? Or what are the top 2 things you're really looking for? When you make a decision on a hire for this particular position, or as I prepare for my interview, I'm prepared to talk to you and answer your questions and share a little bit more about me and my background. But I'm really looking forward to learning what are the top emphasis of this position, and maybe as you go in and they ask that, and at the end when they ask, hey, do you have any questions for us? That's a good opportunity. You don't want to go, hey, how did I do? But it's a good opportunity, to maybe use that time or that question to get some sense of a feel of how they're leaning. Like, hey, when can I expect to hear, something back? Or even before you go into an interview, maybe you can even share, hey, do you all provide feedback? Is that something you can share with me as you head into an interview? I'm not saying it always works. I'm just thinking, my brain's just going because nobody gets feedback. And that's, to your question, feedback is the only way to really know like what to tweak and what to change. Otherwise, to Shira's point, you just pack your bag with everything that she said and do the best that you can, but it's hard to know what you're
And most people don't give feedback, right?
Yeah, unless, if one of us did mock interviews with you or something, maybe we could get some takeaways and go, yeah, your energy seems to be a little low or whatever, but it's next to impossible without feedback.
So is anybody on this call on Kevin Conifee's interview prep call with CNM? You are, Srini. Do you have the information for that you can put in the chat? So Andrew, there is a ministry named called Career Network Ministry, otherwise known as CNM. And they're a very robust job search ministry. And as one of their programs, they have, regular speakers, and people like me and Alki would come and speak. But in addition to that, they have these niche little groups, and one of them is an interview group. Srini, can you quickly talk about it? I've never actually been on it. I just have heard many people who've done it. Can you share with what it's like?
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
in that group.
Oh, you are in that group. Oh,
Okay.
Yeah,
So he knows that.
okay.
I haven't been there in a couple of weeks.
Okay, good.
I had jury duty this week, and something came up last week.
Okay. So can one of you just share, just for everybody else's sake, what the group is like, what they do?
Yeah, I think basically the group is about giving you like a preview of what an interview is, what kind of interview questions you can get. But more importantly, that the panel, like this panel out here, anybody can kind of critique or give you feedback on how you answered it, and the framework around how you should frame your answer, and what's important. And earlier Shira talked about the star stories and the cap stories and all that. Basically, that's what you get to practice in that. And the advantage is that you get a variety of people, different roles, and you learn from each other, and more importantly, you are also able to give feedback. So it's kind of like a mutual learning thing. But I found it very, very effective and useful. So I've been attending it for the last 7 weeks actually. So
good.
Yeah,
so Srini, if you do want to put the link in the chat for other people that for them to connect.
Sure. And I think they have to send an email to Kevin, but I'll find before this call is out, I'll put his email out there. People can send an email to him, but I think you do need to be part of the CNM network, is what I understand.
Yeah. Which, if you don't mind, I wish I could do it simultaneously.
I can put the CNM network link and also Kevin's.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So Andrew, hope that helped a little bit. But I would also encourage you to go back to that group and maybe get, because in that group, you can get a little bit more customized and get people giving you feedback.
Yeah. All right.
I don't want to monopolize the time, but I'll throw this in here too. Just a reminder for everyone, and sometimes this is good news, but not great news when you move on to another interview and then nothing happens. But if you ever get a call back, that's always good. At least that initial one, that's a positive thing. It means for whatever reason, amongst all the people that applied or that they reached out to, we as recruiters, as hiring managers, whoever, HR, whoever's looking, we see something that either number one tells us, okay, they're qualified, but I have a couple of questions, so I want to do a screen call with them. Or, I'm not quite sure, I see something interesting, they look kind of qualified, let me ask a question. That first interview at least says they see something. There's something out of everyone else. You've been moved to the pile of interest. It's either qualified and we really like you and we really just see you going through the whole process unless something comes up, or we see you as partly or mostly qualified. We just have a couple of questions to clarify. So step number one, it's positive. What usually happens after that is there's either a confirmation of your qualifications and whether or not you're legit, or if you say something that goes left with your qualifications and experience, that could be a reason why there's either a no or you don't move on to the next. Everything else is about, okay, we've confirmed qualification. Now let's meet you and find out if I want to introduce you to everybody else in the company. And that has a lot to do with what Shira said, which is culture fit and all of that. So just tossing that in there with this whole interview prep thing and practicing questions and doing mock interviews, at the end of the day, it's about qualifications, how you measure and stack up against all the other athletes, like Shira talks about a lot in the Olympics. It just could be by that much. The rest is just about personality, fit, how you get along with the team, and what they see. So when you're doing your interview preps and all those types of things, it's all about connection. It's all about making the connection. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
So let me make this real for you. So let me tell you about an opportunity. There's a position right now that an employer is doing. They're doing a search, and the search is for a number 2 executive. Okay, so it's somebody who's going to be sort of an operational kind of a person. And in that search, right, that particular organization has some real financial challenges, and they need somebody to come in there and really turn things around. Okay. So when they're vetting candidates, one of the things they're looking for is, number one, can the person handle that financial overhaul? But number 2, do they love it? Do they love it? Because there are people who have skills, all of us do, right? There are a certain set of skills that we are capable of doing, but we don't necessarily love to do. We'll do it, but we don't put our whole heart into it because it's just really not our passion. It's not personality, whatever it is. This employer wants someone who is thrives, loves this kind of thing, because they believe that that person's going to give discretionary effort. They're going to be happy in that role. They're going to really put their whole heart into it because they love it, right? And so a couple of candidates in this particular search, one really does. They're both qualified. One really loves that work and one kind of doesn't. And this employer is going back and forth well, this is a really interesting thing. Both people are super qualified, but the person who loves it more is actually getting a little bit more of their attention. Okay. There are lots of different subtleties here. So when you go through that job description, don't just scan it like the recruiter scanning your resume, right? Really, really read it. Analyze the job posting. I know they all look the same. You've seen one project manager job, you've seen them all. You've seen one communications director job, you've seen them all. It may feel that way to you, but they're all actually different. Read it, read it, read it. Analyze it. Look at that summary section. What's the language that they're using? What are they trying to communicate? I'm not saying they did the best job in writing that job posting, okay? But whatever they did write should give you a clue. Then as you go through the interview process, go deeper. Ask great questions. A lot of job seekers positionally feel like they're here and the employer is here. Many job seekers say to themselves, okay, I just have to get through this interview. I need to answer the right way. I need to look the right way. I need to talk. And if I don't, I'm going to get screened out. Now, while that might be true to a level, if you positionally put yourself here and to sort of like almost like emotionally cowering in front of the employer, okay? What happens is you're not having a real healthy conversation. When you level it out and you say, we are both professionals on this call, we are trying to figure out if this is a mutual fit. They're paying me to do good work. They've got business challenges. I have legitimate skills, right? Let's see if we're going to be a fit for each other. If you have that kind of approach, not this, but this, equal. You are both professionals. Doesn't matter their title, your title. You're both professionals. If you come in it with that perspective, your questions are going to be richer. Your stories are going to be richer. Your whole presence is going to be better because it's going to be much more natural for you. Think of it as your interviews as if it was your first day on the job, your first week on the job. Would you be sitting there and cowering? No, you'd be a professional. You'd be confident. You'd say, yeah, I'm in this job and yes, I have a learning curve, but I'm confident in what I do and I know I can make an impact. That's the kind of tone that you want to have with the employers. You want to be confident. You want to pretend as if you're already working there, have a natural, relaxed conversation. Yes, it might be they ask you a question and you answer QA, but every time you're answering, you want to be in a position where you're saying, you're confident and you're saying, you know what, I've done this before, I can do this again, but then ask good questions. The better your questions, the better you're going to be able to then respond to their needs. Because if all you do is sit there in a reactive position and say, just bring me have the employer ask you, and you're not asking them, you don't actually know what to speak into. It's the same thing in sales. If anybody's in sales or knows any salespeople, what you never want to do in sales is have the prospect say, so salesperson, what can you do for me? A good salesperson is not going to answer that question. A good salesperson is going to go back to the employer and say, employer, what do you need? What are your business challenges? Then the salesperson speaks into those business needs and says, here's how I can help you. And that's how the appropriate sales pitch goes, right? Not just, here's all the wonderful stuff I can do as a salesperson. That might not be relevant to what the employer needs. It's the same thing with you. You've got to make sure that your accomplishments and your questions align with where they're going. So you've got to really probe and figure out where they're coming from so you can speak into their needs, okay? All right, so hopefully, Andrew, that was helpful. Serini, and then Tanji, and then Dave.
Yeah, first off, Shira, thank you for that. Whatever you brought up right now was very powerful, and I think the energy level that you and the kind of the quality of the questions that you ask can actually lead to better conversations, and also you feeling confident about that you understand what they want, and here is how I can resolve that issue. Coming back to my question, we always talk about tailoring the resume to the job description. That's great. But then like in LinkedIn, there's always also advice that I got that, your resume and your LinkedIn should match. And I'm kind of like struggling with that because
I know what you, Ryan, you're right.
you probably got my
I know what you're saying.
question.
Let me go ahead and just address it real fast.
Yeah.
So look, obviously you want to customize your resume, but you can't keep customizing your LinkedIn. That's obvious. So here's what I recommend that you do, okay? In your resume, remember the sample resume I showed you all that has labels down the accomplishments? Okay, here's my quick and easy recommendation. In your resume, you're going to have some standard accomplishment stories. Now, mind you, let's just say you have 10 stories, okay? I call it every spice in the kitchen cabinet. You're going to pull out the cumin and the paprika when you need it. So you're not necessarily going to share all 10 stories. You're going to share just the ones that are relevant. And then whatever ones you do share, you're going to tweak, right? The labels, the keywords, the competency labels. In LinkedIn, have all of those 10 stories without the labels. So the consistency is that the stories are the same, but in the resume, you actually tweak the keywords, and that's what gives it its customized look. But in LinkedIn, it's just the guts, right? It's kind of like the cake without the frosting. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And one quick another question is about, should I keep my resume in LinkedIn? Because sometimes basically like for the easy apply, I need to have a particular resume out there, right? And it might work in your favor, it may not work in your favor, because if somebody is curious about what to talk to you, then they may call you. If they look at your resume and let's say for whatever reason it doesn't resonate with them, or the way they're
Well,
reading it, they may say, I don't want
really,
to talk to this person.
what's most important is the experience. It's not about uploading your resume. It's just making sure the experience section in LinkedIn, that bottom section, is completely filled out. As I just meant, you cut and paste from your resume into the experience section. That is your resume. So if an employer is looking at your profile, they can quickly open it up and see boom, 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 rather than having your resume, right? It's just the experience. That's all I recommend that you do.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Oh, and also, if you do the easy apply button, yes, you do want to upload a resume,
Yeah.
right? But again, I'm not such a fan of the easy apply for the reasons I shared earlier.
Yes. Yeah. I do both the things just because, you want to try out. So use the 10% of the easy apply, and then
Yeah.
you continue to network and talk to people
Yeah,
and stuff like
that's
that.
right.
I have the LinkedIn Premium as well, and I try to connect with people that I don't know, but the same kind of position also.
Network.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And actually, what I'm going to do, Tanji, as you're sharing your question, I'm going to actually, no, I'm going to do this first before I have you go. I'm going to put into the chat, and I've done this once in a while, some videos on my website of speaking engagements I've had with job seeker groups, and I've recorded it. Give me just 1 second, and I'm going to share with you. Okay. So on that link, you're going to see a whole bunch of job search videos. One of them is called Accessing the Hidden Job Market. That's my presentation on networking. How to, with whom should you network, and then how should you do it? All right. So hopefully that helps. So you can kind of go a little bit deeper than what we can go here this morning. Alki, before I go into Tanji, anything you wanted to share about what Srini talked about?
In short, LinkedIn is brand community. I mean, you can put anything. Some people post their whole resume there. It's up to you. Some people tweak. Some people, I just watched, I saw one yesterday where I think they just put the last 10 years. They didn't add any details of experience. They just showed people where they work. You can do anything you want to on LinkedIn. Just keep in mind whatever's out there. That's what people are looking at. Some people typecast you. That's the way that's my phrasing for it. You get typecast by what they see, and sometimes they just see what they see and they don't want to ask any more questions. So you can tweak and put whatever you want on LinkedIn. Just be mindful of what you're putting. That's what people are seeing, and it's best, to Shira's point, to abbreviate LinkedIn and just put your main bullet points and your brand. Your brand is the main things you want people to take away from you if they got 3 seconds looking at your profile.
And the heading is super important. That heading right underneath your picture is connected to LinkedIn's algorithm. When an employer is doing a search for you in the search bar and they put in director of marketing, project manager, customer service representative, whatever they put in, whatever you have in your headline, those keywords are what's going to show up. So you want to make sure that you are very, very clear in your headline to use the keywords that relate to the title that you're looking for. If you're a customer service manager, if you're a project management professional, if you are an executive director, whatever it is, think about it from the perspective of a recruiter. If a recruiter is looking for you, what's the career title that they're going to be looking at? Are they going to probably type in vice president membership or membership executive? Are they going to put, customer experience leader? What do you think? Just you got to pretend that you are in their shoes. The very first words on that heading are important. I'll give you a quick example. I'm coaching somebody right now, and she's in it's called the channel sales partnership world. Okay. So it's a very niche kind of thing where, she'll go into a technology company and she'll forge a partnership with another technology company, and they put their technologies together and then sell it to a third party. Okay. So it's called channel sales part. Well, what she was doing in her headline is she was putting partner sales. But the reality is that the keyword that the employer is going to look for is actually going to be channel partner sales. Such a small tweak. But you have to think about what's the actual career title that the employer is going to be looking for. Just putting in that word channel could make her come up higher in the search results, because it's a more directly related title to what the employer is probably going to be using to find her. Okay, so really make sure that the keywords are right on in that heading. Okay, hope that helps, Srini. Tanji, and then Dave.
So, good morning, Shira and everyone. How are you? I didn't really have a question. I was actually going to respond to Andrew when he made his comment.
Sure.
But I was going to respond from a perspective of someone who has been a hiring manager, but also who does PR work.
Please.
And it's all about, what I wanted to say was, it's also all about how we say what we say. And being on the other end, especially my last job, we did a lot of group interviews. So we had a team, and it would be like a team of 6 of us plus the interviewee, and everybody had a role. And my role was to watch body language, cultural fit, and read between the lines. That was my role. Because I was PR, I could read between the lines. I could see if someone was spinning the story, whether they were being honest, whether they were being nervous, whether they were trying to figure out how to tell the story. And I was saying that to say that Andrew, when he brought up the fact that he's having a hard time sometimes, or he thinks it's because he's been on this job for 6 months, that job for 6 months, that how he's explaining that and how that's coming across maybe what's causing some issues. Because if you're explaining it as, whoa, it's me, every time I get a job, I can't seem to keep it. And I'm not saying that's the way you say it, but if your body language is saying that, if your voice is saying that, if your tone is saying that, someone like me, where that was my job to watch for that, the first thing I would say back to the team is, he seems like a problem child. He seems like a person that just can't seem to keep a job. But if he spent the story or told the story in a different way, a little bit more with a positive spin, a little bit more to kind of lean towards, not so much they let me go as much as I did what I needed to do for 6 months and the job was complete and I accomplished A, B, C, D, and I went blah, blah, blah. It kind of gives the hiring folks on the other side a little bit more like, okay,
Yeah.
he's a little more creative. So I had just wanted to share that, and I didn't want to butt in because we were kind of like moving quick. But
Fabulous. No, Tangi, that's so great. It's in general, it's like in life, it's like, well, it's not what we say, it's how we say it. So I guess to that point, Andrew, when you're sharing your stories, again, to Tangi's point, be positive, right? Hey, here are the great things that I accomplished in this job. We were successful in blah, 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 blah. And look, unfortunately, there was a budget cut, right? And the company lost some clients and, a number of us were laid off, that kind of thing. This is, it's unfortunate, but man, I had such a fabulous time there, accomplished some great things. It was really good. And now I'm really excited to be here to help you all advance this similar goals, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's great. It's really
And sometimes it's good to attack the elephant in the room. They're going to ask you that
right,
question.
Right.
So if you do it the way Shira just said it, you're actually putting the answer out there before they even ask the question. So now you're not hitting the face with, oh, here we go, I got to explain this situation.
And you know what you can do? You can even address it up front. You can even anticipate their objection when you're in the beginning of the interview. They're asking you some questions. Say, what, Mr. Employer, if it's okay, I just want to press pause for a second. You might be looking at my resume and wondering about some of my recent short tenure. I've had some people ask me questions about that. If it's okay, I'd kind of like to address it. And they'll be like, great, thank you. Because that says you're leaning into it. You're being proactive and you're going to be authentic. And then you can say, so look, I had some great experiences at companies A, B, and C, right? Unfortunately, there were some downsizings because of budget cuts and this and that, things that had nothing to do with me. But I want you to know that I left on great terms and I had, great experiences and I've had very legitimate reasons for leaving. And I'm really looking forward to our meeting today, right?
Right. And I've had to use that on my own. I mean, I got let go of my last job due to a reorganization, and I've been there for 10 years. And so I hit it right off the bat. The one problem I'm struggling with still is trying to convince people I plan on working until I'm 70 or 72, which is 10 more years. But they're all looking at that age going, wonder how long is she going to be around? But I just try to hit the elephant out of the room immediately. I just put it in there like looking for something new. I'm excited about a new thing. Or sometimes I say I'm going back to, because a lot of jobs I've been applying for has been meeting planning, which was my first love. It's how I got into the association business. And so I kind of put it out there as this whole full circle moment for me, that I want to go back to my first love, because I have to address it.
Right.
And so the same thing with everybody. I'm saying, when you want to, have to address it. And if anything, and then I'll end on this, just think about how politicians do it. because that's basically what you're doing. When
Bad
politicians have
message.
some bad news or something bad that they have to attack, they hit that story head on and they spin it real quick into a positive versus a negative. I'm not saying lie. I'm saying make it sound more positive than negative.
Yeah, overcome the objection. Whatever the objection you think they're going to have, overcome it before they can address it. Yeah, and show them what the positive angle is. Right?
Shira,
Mhm.
real quick, I put the information on Career Network, the link out there. For people who want to get added to that group, they have to go to that link and then attend the webinar that Kevin conducts, basically. So I put the title out there. So
Great. Thank you, Srini. Yeah, so for those who just joined us, so in our early part of our conversation today, we were talking about Career Network Ministry and how they have an interview prep group. It's weekly, right, Srini?
yes, every Tuesday.
Yeah, and so Srini put the link into the chat. Actually, Srini, can you put that in one more time? I think we might have had 1 or 2 people come in after you put the link in. That'd be great. So
Sure.
they may not see it. All right, Dave.
Good morning, Shira and Alki and everyone. Mine's really brief. I finished a short-term contract. It's very good experience. The client tends to have open-ended, short-term. It'll say temp to perm, maybe it isn't, all that kind of stuff. But for the purposes of the resume and for LinkedIn, I'm wondering, should I emphasize that it's short-term? I don't want to look like that's the only thing I want to do now. The last job I had was 20 years. I also don't want to make it look like this was a poor fit. I can talk to and I can get a reference that'll say I did a great job. But I just want to know about spinning this for the resume and for
Very
LinkedIn.
simple, Dave. Thank you for the question. It's super, super simple. Both for the resume and for the LinkedIn, right after your title, in parentheses, you can say either just contract, just literally contract, or short-term contract. That's it. That just in 2 or 3 words, it says it. You don't have to say anything else. The people understand, oh, this is just a gig, right? It had nothing to do with tenure. It was a defined period. People get that when you say contract or short-term contract.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions?
Shira, have you heard of these things called VVPs?
Huh?
It's short for value validation projects.
No,
And these are things, they're almost like pitch decks. And I think the point is to reserve them for the companies and jobs you really, really, really want to work for. And these are almost like voluntary consulting projects. And through the interview process, the point is to kind of identify what the pain points are and then come up with solutions, package it, and then, I guess give it back to the hiring manager with the intention of getting hired.
Yeah. So I haven't heard of that phrase, and I didn't know that it was a thing. But what I can share as a best practice is what you're talking about. I just, without a label, is when you get to the 3rd level interview in particular. Now, it wouldn't work as much with the hiring manager, but certainly meaning, let's just say you have the recruiter screening interview, then you have the hiring manager, and then you have another level. Okay. So that 3rd level could be with a panel interview, could maybe even be with the hiring manager again, maybe it's the CEO, what have you. But typically for the 3rd, I do recommend people think about doing, well, you're calling a pitch deck, but basically it's some version of solutionizing. So whether that is you do a SWOT analysis, right, to look at the business needs of the organization based upon what you figured out in the first couple of levels, whether it is having just a not a proposal, but a proposed initiative that maybe you might want to put forth. Maybe, and I'm not a big believer in doing the 30, 60, 90-day action plan. A lot of those sound very similar because everybody's going to do a listening tour, but you can say, look, and I'd like to share with you a bit of a summary of how I might onboard into the role. Here are some of the stakeholders I'd like to be engaging with. Here's some of the questions that I would be asking. Here's some ideas that I might want to proffer. And putting that into a presentation can be helpful to kick off a conversation with the 3rd level. You can try doing it with the hiring manager, but you may not have enough information yet. But that would be sort of a general recommendation. But Tammy, I'm not familiar with the actual, what did you call it, VVP?
Yeah, I mean, the 30, 60, 90 day was almost 3 years ago when I was looking for my last job. That was kind of the thing to differentiate yourself or your candidacy. and now it's the VDP.
Okay, thanks. I didn't know that people were actually calling it a thing. But yeah, thanks for putting that out there. Karen?
Yeah, sure. I have a question. It goes back to contract work. I've been on a long-term contract, as you know, and now it's been represented by two different companies. I started putting both the companies together since the job description was the same. Now I've separated out into two different job descriptions. How would you suggest I handle that?
Yeah, but when you say it's been handled by two different companies, meaning you're on one contract, company A used to give you your paycheck, and now company B is giving you your paycheck. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So no, I would not separate it out into two companies because it's one job. And so there's one of two ways you can do this. In your resume, you can either start with the title. This is actually the easy for you. This would be the easiest. But if you did this, all of your jobs would have to follow this format of company, title, company. So put the title, and then on the next line, you can say, you know, company A / company B. You can just do a slash, or you can put company B, which is the current one, which actually, honestly, that's really all that people need to know. They don't really care as much about company A. What you could do is you could say company B, and then maybe as a little asterisk at the bottom of your job description, say contract formerly held by company A up until, you know, March 2024, whatever it was, right? Because it's what's, if someone's going to check a reference, which they don't often do with contracts anyway, but let's just say they did, they're going to call company B to say, are you employed? Does that make sense? Because people have, look, I mean, I don't know about you, but in the banking world, right? How many mergers and acquisitions? I've been, the bank I have right now has been acquired like 3 or 4 times. Nobody cares that.
Right. I come from the telecom world, and that's very common.
M&A is so normal. So what's really most important is what's the name of the current company who's paying your paycheck? That's it, really. But if you want to give a little more detail, then at the bottom, you could say, you know, contract formerly held by Acme Company.
Okay, I've just tried it many different ways, and I wanted to get your opinion.
Yeah, because if you do two jobs, it look confusing as to what the dates are, why it's going to make it look like you left quick, you changed one job with the current company, and then if you want, you can put a little note about the other company.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, anyone else before we wrap up?
I just want to say that that last comment, and I think the ones before that, from how you present yourself and all those types of things, explaining different things on your resume. We say a lot on this call, network, network, network. Another way of thinking about it, as you all were talking, as we wrap up, I was just thinking in my head as a recruiter, I'm like, a lot of this is what we talk about on this call when we say network, but really it's the difference between cold applying and having some type of a lead-in, having a connection. If you have a lead-in, whether it's a recruiter, an agency, a friend, a coworker, a LinkedIn Connect, you can explain all of these types of things to that person a lot easier, so that when they present you, they already have a relationship, or maybe they can get a better, a closer relationship, faster relationship than you with the employer or the manager. They can give you a lead-in. Shira says a lot on this call, 10% of your job search should be cold applying. That's what she's talking about when she says 10% applying. She means cold applying, like out of the blue, you're applying with all the other strangers that employers have no idea. We have 200 resumes. You're all strangers unless we've seen you before. So in our minds, we're like, all right, what does it say on the resume? Oh, wow, that's a flag, or that's a red flag. Oh, wow, that makes me curious. Whereas if you have somebody you can tell them all your secrets and all, where things are hidden in the back, in the backyard and all those types of things, and they can translate it better and they can explain it better. So it's just all the more reason I was thinking for all those last comments of, if you can find a connection and get a lead in that way, it's all the more reason why we're saying go that route more than cold applying, because it makes all those explanations being interpreted a certain way, not being typecast. It makes it so much easier when you have somebody else who can share some of these things as a lead in, and that way when you walk in, you're like, oh shoot, they already have some information on why I was laid off before. Now we just have to talk about it maybe a little further, but at least they know, and it's not just totally cold and scary.
Yeah, there's nothing like having somebody warm up the relationship for you, because then it humanizes your candidacy. right? You're not just a resume anymore. You're a real person with a real story. And keep up your network, you know, and I think sometimes what happens is people get into their jobs and they forget to keep networking until they have to look for a job again. And then all of a sudden they got to resurrect relationships. When you get a job, keep up your network, go to networking meetings, have coffees, keep up your relationships, right? Because you never know. And it's not just about you, right? Because networking is not just about, it's about them too. You want to be a go-giver. When you're networking with people, how can you help them? How can you support them? What resources can you provide? What connections can you make for them? Always make sure that you are on the other side of being a giver, not just a receiver in the relationship. Okay.
Very interesting. I've never thought of it like that before.
Yeah.
And I definitely will,
Yeah.
even when I get a job.
Keep it up. Just keep helping people. That's why we're all here. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and formally wrap up this portion of the call. For those of you who'd like to stay on the prayer call that I'm going to be leading, you're certainly welcome to do that. And otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing everybody in 2 weeks' time. Okay. Have a blessed day, everyone.